I'm David Hunt, and welcome to The Art Hunter. My guest today, wow, she has this strong relationship with the very famous Talano Hotel and Restaurant here in St Kilda, where Mirka Moir had so much influence on this city. And when she died, the outpouring was huge a few years ago. There was a state funeral for her. Of course, she painted all the restaurant in the Talano restaurant, which is still there today. It's part of Melbourne's heritage now. And she had too much fun, my guest today. She had too much fun along her journey in the art world. So she moved into commercial media and filmmaking, but like with the love of natural world, taking classic botanical drawing classes, diploma in visual arts, and a master's of fine drawing in London. Hello, she even travelled to study. Now making her name as a sculptor and also as a drawing. She also teaches a little bit. We'll get onto that. She's unstoppable unless a dog gets in the way. Her dog that tripped her up and made this interview much later than what it was going to be. Jo, hello.
How do you do, David? Nice.
And how are you feeling after you trip up from the dog?
It's not great, I have to say.
So
it's okay though.
Yeah, but it's a shock, isn't it? You're doing the right thing, taking your dog out for a walk, and it's good for you as well.
Yep.
And then a fall when the lead gets caught around your legs, not a good thing.
Well, the dog got caught around my legs, not the lead.
Oh, wow.
And I had broken it before, and I snapped the metal that was in there.
Oh.
So I had to have a new lot. It's really rather weird. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Now let's go back to Talano's.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been back of late? And do you walk through that front door and go, "Oh, I know this place so well"?
I don't actually. I have been back when different owners have owned it over the years, but not. It's such an intense, beautiful time. There is a familiarity when I walk in, but George is long gone.
Yes.
So I worked with George and William. Mirka was not living there when I started. She lived in Wellington Street, St Kilda in those days. Yes, no. Without George, it's not really the same place for me.
But what about the inspiration from somebody like her? Crazy. She was crazy. Like this mad woman, but. That's what was so wonderful about her.
Yep.
But her art, like the fact that it's all painted there on the walls of the restaurant.
Yes. I have to say they gave me a life, actually. I was not a very comfortable person in quite a straight family. And when I met them and worked with them, I realised their art is actually life and madness and joy and intensity and intellectual discussion and making the depth of understanding and the value of making visual work. So suddenly I felt like, I get what life's about now.
So it would be hard pulling yourself away from it and then getting involved in a commercial arts practice. What was that like?
The commercial or just the chain?
Well, both.
So it was a requirement. I had to look after a child by myself.
Make some money.
I wanted to give her a life where she could have choices, and I wasn't confident enough in my artistic practice to know that could happen. So I got into, actually Mirka gave me a book called Lady into Fox, written by David Garnett in 1922, beautiful story.
Yeah.
He's a Bloomsbury Group writer. He was Bunny, if you ever watch any of the Virginia Woolf series or books. He was very much part of it. And she gave me that book and I thought it would be a wonderful film. And I set about making it into a film. I trained foxes and met many, many film people. One wouldn't do it if one wasn't naive enough, as I was then. But in that process, I learned quite a lot about filmmaking. So when I became a single mother, I used my creativity into commercial filmmaking. So I was able to then make a living.
Yep. And
buy a little house. And
what sort of stuff were you doing?
So I did TV commercial work. First
Yep.
of all, I did animation and special effects with an English system called Quantel. It was one of the first invented. It seems so ancient now compared to Photoshop and everybody's telephone.
Yeah.
And then I went into live action. A company employed me, and I directed TV commercials, documentaries with ABC and SBS, and then I went on to direct comedy company for Channel 10.
Wow.
And then I went on to Filmhouse, Fred Skepsi's company, as a director. So I worked as a director for many years until I saw the internet.
Right.
And then I thought, this turns everything around.
Turned it, upside down. So did you study filmmaking? Wow. So you did it all on the go.
With having ideas, everything I do is driven by the idea first, and then I learn how to do it.
Yeah. But that was the golden era of that happening. That couldn't happen now, could it?
I don't know.
Or do you think it could?
No, I think it could.
Yeah, so young people coming through, you think there's still a chance for them without the experience of filmmaking they could?
Well, I think you get experience, and I find people quite generous with knowledge, and if you're willing to work and be open, come and see this is how I shoot. And a camera, if someone loves a camera as a camera person, what joy to show someone how it works.
Yeah.
So I think people in creative industries are incredibly generous with their time and their heart and mind.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I got that from amazing people, extraordinary people.
But what a career
amazing
you had.
Era.
You look back and think, wow, I achieved so much.
No.
You don't?
Never. I still think what will I do when I grow up?
Join the circus. Run away and join the circus. How old's your daughter now?
She's 47.
And what does she think of Mum these days?
These days she thinks I'm pretty good, pretty cool. She has her own fashion label. She had a label called Willow, and then she's gone on to have another one now. She's incredibly creative. We talk all the time. We have had mother-daughter we had various upsets in our life.
Well, that's normal, isn't it?
Well, it's hard, I think, for children to understand that their parent is actually a person, and I think they've got to become mature to understand that. So, and I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
100% I get it.
How were you with your parents?
Well, they're quite sort of straight, and I had a lovely mum, and but I ran away from them at 17 to find out what was happening in the world, because this is very boring.
Because you're from a fairly large family, weren't you, siblings?
Yep.
And were away at boarding school?
Who?
My
brother was.
Yeah. So, did you think that you were going to be shoved off to boarding school at some stage?
No. Mum had finishing school in her sights for me.
Okay.
That sort of thing.
But
she's a beautiful person,
Yeah.
and I nursed her in her last years. She died at 103.
Whoa.
Beautiful,
Whoa.
gorgeous, wonderful,
Yeah.
and never stopped learning.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, as a person, she never stopped learning.
Yeah. So what did she think when all of a sudden you got in cahoots with Merker and people like that? Was she going, oh dear, what have I done wrong?
No, she quite liked me, I think.
Okay.
She thought I was a bit of an explorer and quite liked that. I did, however, get myself into very bad trouble, but I didn't expose her to that.
Yeah.
And I got myself out of it, and
Yeah.
she was glad of that.
Yeah.
A little bit of help from her at the end there when it was pretty touch and go, but yeah.
So all of a sudden you had this amazing career, directing, and then you decided to look a bit more seriously at your art, drawing.
So I once at a house, child's happy, made her own life. I can look and see if the art, oh, is anyone home? Am I here, still here? Is the artist here? And I thought,
wait, hold on.
I did not know, because when you have an art scene in an era, and this is one of the wonderful things about art, is that it's so endemic of the time. And at the time when I was working at Tolano, not as an artist, just as a general helper there.
Yeah.
Percival and Charles Blackman was around, and we'd all and that's an era. Now, I'm coming back into art thinking I'm picking up there, but no, art has moved on.
Yep.
Art has way moved. So I had to learn what art is now. I actually think it's fabulous now, much more open, less prescriptive.
But what about all your work, like in television? Wasn't that art, or do you felt that was more business?
It's committee art. That's not art.
No, okay.
Ian McFadden and the Comedians and Comedy Company was, but there's an incredible requirement to get the sponsor who's, their work. Oh, no, and TV commercials is nothing to do with art. There's an agenda.
Yep.
Art has no agenda, and that's what I love.
Oh, I agree.
Commercial media or even graphic design for clients, there's always an agenda, and that's an okay thing, but I'm not criticising that. But for me now, I wanted to stop having an agenda and find out just what was in me as a human, and to connect with other humans and the natural world and all those things. No agenda.
Yep.
And I wanted to live and die on my tools, and if I stabbed myself, I stabbed myself. You didn't, or you didn't. I just did it all by. So then I wanted to dive quite deep into the integrity of the human condition and share, and I was quite a good drawer, and I
developed it. London?
So London, so I did a diploma because I wanted to know how paints were made and how to get that effect with charcoal. A wonderfully technical course, fantastic teachers, great history teacher, Steve Cox.
But history of art is fascinating,
absolutely.
isn't it?
I was like, it was hold on to your seat as he was teaching, like, whoa! Wonderful artist called Steve Cox. He taught me at La Trobe College of Art in Fitzroy, nothing to do with the university. Anyway, so I did that, and Michael Mark, and taught me how to make paint, and Honor Bradbeer, and how to draw, and blah, blah, blah. So I did that. Then I went to BCA, and I did a graduate certificate in visual art. So I wanted to then start branching out into conceptual matters, and then in doing that, it enabled me to apply for a master's. So I applied for the only Masters of Fine Art drawing. There is one in Brussels, but in England, I have an English passport. My father was English, and I applied and got in to what's called UAL, University of Arts London. Grayson Perry's the Chancellor. There's 6 universities within that group. So Chelsea, Central St Martin's, Wimbledon, Camberwell, London School of Design, London School of Fashion. So I got in, and I flew to London, got a dreadful little basement apartment, lived there and did my master's, and learnt about drawing. I learned a lot more about drawing as a medium. How
old were you?
Oh, this is recent. Yeah. Oh, so that was 2017, 18.
Right, okay.
The Masters in London, yeah.
So...
Luckily, before COVID.
But how wonderful for you to do it later in life. Did that give you a lot more insight? With, like knowing who you are and where to go instead of doing it as an 18-year-old?
Oh, like I can't. No, I think that would have been amazing too, to do it. when you're younger. I think it doesn't matter when you do it. It's amazing. It's always going to be a little bit different, but I can't say that it's better or not.
Okay.
It is what it is, and I adored it.
Right.
And made incredible friends and learnt an incredible amount and had extraordinary experiences, like into the British Museum, the Prince drawing room, because Bridget Riley set up a foundation that students can go. You just say, could I have that Michelangelo you have? And they bring it out for you, and you sit there. Could I have that Lautrec? Could I have that Virgil Chalmers?
Whoa.
Oh yeah. And you sit there and you have it and you. It's just beautiful.
Oh.
So when you go to somewhere, I mean, for a Western civilization of art in arts, and you go to somewhere like London, the access and the excellence and the level, and you go to the Barbican and there's a Lee Krasner retrospect. I mean, just constantly in this incredible world of art.
Yeah. So, how do you go? How do you sit now? Do you call yourself a sculptor or a drawer? You know, where
I don't see very much difference between them, funnily enough.
Okay.
When you make a mark, it's the first thing from an imagined world out into the real world. So there's an authenticity there. You can't really take it away. You can rub it out, but it's still there. So there's this lovely authenticity about drawing. Now, when you have a sculpture and you make it, the same thing, you can't really take it away.
No.
Once it's out there, it's out.
Yeah.
Now, one could say that with painting as well, but I think with painting you can continually manipulate. There's something very immediate about both those mediums for me. That's just how I see them.
Okay.
So it's sculpture, sort of drawing in three-dimensional space.
And do you draw what you're going to make into a sculpture?
Only so I don't forget.
Oh, okay.
So I note down, and then once I draw, well, that might not work, and some things come out of that drawing process. As I do quite like to start with a plan. I like knowing what I'm departing from, and I know some artists just allow things to happen as they happen.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of that, but I'm just a tiny bit of I come up with the idea first, so I write down or draw the idea, and then we go from there.
Now, you just touched it.
I know.
And you said it's your security blanket. It's your sketchbook, which is very important to you. Why?
Well, it records, again, it's in the physical, it records conceptual ideas that can disappear or change, so I've got it there, so yeah.
And I actually said, could I have a look? And you hesitated, but you gave it to me, and it wasn't until after I took it that I thought to myself, I don't think you really wanted me to have it because it's your book. Did you have that feeling when you were handing it to me?
Well, I know we're here at an interview and you're talking to me about my practice, and this is part of it. So, and I'm honoured that you would like to even look at it. So,
and I found a few things quite interesting. There was a scribble and then there was another one that I said, would you cut that out and frame it? And you said, no, that's part of my sketchbook.
There's actually one I thought I might. I've got a little spot I'm thinking of. So, it's interesting you asked me that.
Okay. Well, I thought maybe that would be. How many sketchbooks do you have? What number is this, do you know? Well,
they're all different, and I know some artists that buy the same moleskin and have an incredible library with dates on the spines, and I'm not that organised. But I have it's probably about my 11th for quite a short career in a way. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about your sculpture, being a sculptor. What is your, it's very earthy what you do. And you sort of didn't agree with me there, or were you agreeing with me?
I started sculpting during lockdown because I was finding it an incredibly difficult time. I realised how much I need other artists and people. I started to count my breath as a way to keep saying, then how can I hold my breath? How can I hold these moments? And then, oh, I know, I can breathe into balloons. Oh, how can I make that solid? Oh, I know, I can put plaster in. And then I started to think, well, how can I make this, because plaster of Paris isn't terribly robust. And I knew of a material that some artists used called hydrostone, which is a gypsum cement. So then I thought, well, how can I colour it? So I love raw pigments, I have jars of pigments, and I added that and made colours. And then I started to, what I call manage so you mix it up, pour into the balloons, and then manage the shapes. And in that process, make things that in lockdown, I got myself out of my body so I could talk to it in a funny way. That's that's where it started. And I'm now incredibly satisfied with the process. I've been asked to commissioned to make some quite big works, and I do really love sculpting. And I also love integrating existing materials as well into them. So that's how it started. Prior to that, it was all about drawing.
Right, okay, okay. There's one over your shoulder. Yeah, you can just quickly turn around.
Oh, this one on the right? Yes.
Is that balloons?
They were balloon. It's
well,
now gypsum cement.
But I would not have picked. I thought it was, like stones, and you moulded them to. But they're balloons. Yeah, I'm fascinated with what you're doing there.
Yeah, put the liquid gypsum cement, as cement is sloppy and liquid, into the balloons, and I built them up and up. So you do one and then add the next and everything I do balances, so they sit there without any.
Right, and some are a little bit squashed to
so like that. When then one,
it
it has to counteract the weight of that, and then that has to counter it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that one's actually called kilter. Because I was out of kilter. So I wanted to make something that balanced. Yeah. And it's an ongoing battle living.
Yeah. But then over my shoulder there's these rocks with something going on top. Yeah. Tell us what's going on in that one.
Another thing I started to do is I wanted to solidify things that weren't there. So the space here, for example, or Rachel Whiteread does it beautifully, an English artist, where she I think her first sculpture was she sculpted and moulded the space underneath her mother's bed, because as a child that was a very familiar but spooky thing.
Don't crocodiles live under there?
And lobsters. My sister used to think lobsters were under there. But, and she does underneath of chairs. She's actually filled a whole house and then taken the house away. She sculpts spaces. So we're all used to seeing this chair here, but what does this space look like when you take the chair away? So I was doing that with human. So I did it with this part of my body. I put the balloon to see what this space looked like if I took it away from myself. So then I saw the indent of my ear, and I felt like said to myself, it's like a listening stone. And then I was incredibly admiring of a group of people, and I was part of them. I belonged to a performance art group where we dress as angels called the Climate Guardians and stand in highly sensitive environmental spaces that are about to be logged or mined, or because police don't like arresting older women dressed as angels, so it's quite a good tactic, and the press like to take photos. Anyway, so I did that for this particular issue. It was on Western Port, not as sexy as Port Phillip Bay, but AGL had proposed an incredibly damaging liquid gas import situation. They're going to suck in seawater, spit it out chlorinated at 6 degrees different temperature, get the liquid gas that they'd bought from overseas that Australia had sold, and then make it gas and set. It was just nuts. Hundreds of people for years, and the government was going to give them the we said no, EES first. So we fought for 3 years, the people I made. So I made this space of some of the key people that took through it nearly every day out of their lives for 3 years to fight that on behalf of nature, on behalf of the environment, on behalf of the seagrasses, the mangroves, the whitings, the dolphin population, everything that gives us, sustains us life. They fought, and I'll say we won. And Richard Wynne, and they were denied the permit. So I thought I would make a monument to people who listen to the earth, and that's what those listening stones are.
What?
So that's the sort of journey an artist makes, sometimes in nanoseconds, and that's why you've got to write it down quite quickly because it's constant. It is.
What a beautiful, Jo, that is just spectacular.
Thank you.
I'll look at that so differently now.
Yeah.
Also over my shoulder is this drawing of these hands. And I did make a comment when you sent them to me, but you wasn't sure, which I have clarified now. Tell us a bit about that drawing. What's it called?
It's called Star Picker.
So the hands or the fingers are picking at stars when you look closely at it.
Yes, and the black is a space of a head.
Yep.
And my thinking around it was how people do pick and choose things they want to hear or know of another person or self. And in fact, I think every person is a universe of experiences, ideas, is a library. And this was just my way of making a drawing about, are other people picking it? Are they putting it in? Are they taking it out? Is it how I feel? So that I just called it Star Picker. But that's a thinking behind it. And as I said, the owner of it now, she related very much to it. As a family member has a mental illness. She was very clear. She bought it sight unseen. It was a commission for a thing called the Kadumba Drawing Award. So it's an award where you're invited and you have to make a work for the award. You don't submit something.
Right.
So it's quite a lot of pressure as an artist.
Yeah.
It's got never to be seen until it gets to the awards night. And she saw it online and bought it sight unseen.
Fantastic. And then over your shoulder, it's almost, when you first glance at it, you think it's Michelangelo's The Hand of God coming to Adam. But then you realise it's somebody laying in bed and their hand hanging out. Beautiful. A great subject matter, you unexpected.
What is the drawing? Is unexpected?
The concept of it.
Well, it's called "Where Do You Go To, My Lovely," and
who sang that song? Peter.
Oh, it'll come to me in a second. Sarsted.
Yeah.
So again, it's the same. I keep this recurring thing. So when you dream, when you're alone in bed, you are fully alone. There is, and where do you go? And we do go many, many, many places. And then, I don't know, but I do stick my arm out of bed if I need cooling down. So I thought...
You wouldn't this time of the year, though. It's a bit cold, that hand out, isn't it? No? You still would do it?
Well, if I'm hot.
Yeah, if you're hot.
Yeah, or the leg. But there's... and again, the scribble of the hair is about the scribble in the mind, but the reality of the hand brings it back to the human condition for me. So, again, that's how and that's how I speak. I draw, I don't say these things very often to people. So that's how I say them.
Right, okay. So ideas are full and plenty in there, because I've seen in there. You're not seeing it, but I'm seeing it. There's always something going on in your head that you want to, maybe the balloons or the spaces, the drawings, do you ever think to yourself, I've run out of ideas?
Yeah, all the time.
Oh, do you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought you would be
freak out and you go, it's okay, There'll be more. Just wait. Just go about your business. Go and have a coffee.
That surprises me. I thought your mind would be just spitting out ideas and
Well, it does, but on many things, not just art. So sometimes it's busy on other things. But I think most artists I know have this time where there's, writers have it, writer's block.
Writer's
There's
block,
times when, there's always times. It can have many reasons that it happens, but there's always times. I've learned to trust, though, now that things will come again.
And
they do.
And they do.
And one day they won't.
Well, yeah. But what a wonderful mind you have. What a great career you've created for yourself. I admire what you do, and I admire your mind. And your spaces. I enjoy your spaces around your neck and ear. So, Jo, thank you so much.
That's an absolute pleasure.
We could talk for another hour, but we've run out of time. But I love what you're doing. I love your thought patterns and your journey. There's a book in you, your life story. Yeah, there is. Well, this is the start of it anyway. Thank you so much for this interview.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, and thank you.
I'm David Hunt. You've been watching The Art Hunter, and we'll be back again next week. See ya.